Alrighty, let's start the countdown. 3, 2, 1. And welcome to the Copilot Show, AI and Beyond. I'm your guest speaker, and as well as Ashley. She's also the guest because this is really for you guys, right? And we're here today to talk about AI in the real world, generative AI in tax accounting. And I was happy to be able to, find Ashley, who is so willing to come on board and talk about the AI capabilities that she's working on to share with all of you. It's okay if you're not in tax and accounting to join us, right? Because this is just real world AI stories. And some of the things you're going to see will likely apply to your industry. So don't worry about that. If you haven't been on one of our episodes before, this started out as a different series, and everyone said, hey, let's do this once a month. It's great to get together, talk about these things, the ability to talk to MVPs and experts, that you can ask real live questions. It's an open format. So if you've been to a presentation in the past, like a forum, or you've been to one of the shows like Summit, and you had a chance to go ask the MVPs or ask the expert session, same type of thing here. Type your question in the chat box, or feel free to come offline and we'll actually talk, and the recording will be posted after. And please try to like it, share it, repost, because we want to grow this community to talk about these things and really help everybody get there. And if you see something or you heard of something and you say, hey, that'd be a great topic for Chris and other guests, then just let us know. We'd love to hear from you. So today, I already introduced myself, but I'll give a formal introduction. I'm Chris Cognetta. I'm the CTIO here at CongruentX. I'm also one of your Microsoft MVPs focusing on the CE and AI space. But as you know today, and Ashley will laugh, MVPs go across everything. There's no more one little box that you sit in. So let me introduce our guest speaker today, Ashley Francis. Thank you for coming, Ashley.
Hi, yes. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Absolutely. Can you tell us a little about yourself, your company?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a CPA, which is a certified public accountant. I always have to pause because I just say CPA. I've been doing this for 25 years or so, and I specialize in high net worth individuals and trust and estates. So if you have 15 million or more in assets, I would be the kind of person that you would work with, because islands and airplanes are kind of their own thing. But also what I am, because that wouldn't naturally make me an MVP, I created a blog letter slash, I mean, it was insane. I before 2023, if someone had said you would be creating a newsletter for classes, I'd be like, that's not me. That's not what I do. But under the name Kitchen Table Automation, I basically saw Gen AI coming and saw it arrive and saw how it would impact my profession. And it became really important for me to share with my profession what it can do and what it will be doing. So I have those two lives now, where I have the practice and then I have kitchen table automations.
Awesome. And that's some great points, right? Generative AI is here. It's not a fad. It's not going away. We're seeing real use percentages and gains across all different departments. Certainly you see it around adoption in sales, summaries, call capabilities like Dialogue Copilot, but you're also going to see it in other places. And that's why we're taking the time to talk to people like Ashley and have them present their journey. And remember, if you're using it today and you want to come on board and be a guest speaker, please join us. So Ashley, I got to ask, there's been some buzzwords around saying that you're known as the AI whisperer. Can you explain to us what that actually means and how you got the nickname?
Yeah, and it's so funny too, because I resisted it for a long time. Like uh, people would say that, like, you guys, this is so easy, everyone can do it. But basically, it came from my ability to, even early on, like when ChatGPT came out, there was no guides, there was nobody that that had a class or a book about how to use it. And so I spent so much time using it, and I got it to do things that everybody was like, well, it can't do that. Well, it did. And so I've just developed over time these tools and techniques to kind of push it beyond what folks go in there and use it for, and find where, sometimes it does have challenges, how to get around them.
So basically, for those of you out there who may not understand, this is the skill of prompt engineering. And if you're using ChatGPT and those capabilities today in your work or in your office or Azure environments, prompt engineering and how you prompt it is a lot of good stuff in there, right? The things it can do, what you can enable it. It's not just reading information, it can reference things, it can group things in tables. One of the ones I love is the Microsoft 365 Copilot, in where I just say, I was out of town for 2 weeks or out of town for a week. Hey, what did you miss? And it goes, and I said, what did I miss? Put it in a table, give me the priority of responses that I need to respond to it. And it went through my Outlook inbox and just went, and it showed me all the emails and everything. So check that one out. But without further ado, I want to jump right in and let's talk about what you can do with generative AI in tax and accounting. And I'm going to stop sharing and let you share, Ashley.
Well, yeah, so the short answer is a lot. The long answer is how I like to talk about this technology, because I think a lot of times when you talk about generative AI in the workforce, it is from a perspective of the machine goes and does X that a human currently does. So how can we replace human A with machine A instead? And
that scares a lot of people, right?
It really does. But the way I like to think about it is that the biggest problems that we have in business and the biggest problems that we have in the workplace isn't math. It's not. It doesn't have to do with like what that particular task is. The biggest problems we have in the workplace are other people, not in a bad way. It's just peopling with people, right? And so we can have Gen AI come in. It's really right now in its infancy. There is all of this hype right now, but that's because people are expecting it to do things that it's still a toddler. Like, you wouldn't give a toddler your keys to your car and be like, okay, go. If you treat it like an intern, if you treat it like a toddler, if you understand its limitations and then grow with it, grow as it grows, you will have a much better experience. But in the end, everything can be done with Gen AI except for one thing, that is be human. So a ton of these things are going to be productized. A ton of, like, Microsoft Copilot already productizing Gen AI in our work. But how do we use it to human better with other humans? Because that's the only thing that we can do better with this. So
yeah, and I think you mentioned two great points there. One is treat it like a child, right?
absolutely.
It's like a toddler right now. You have to be that explicit in your so that it understands explicitly what you want to do, right?
Right.
You may start a prompt off as you're a sales leader and you're specializing in this particular field and you want to manage your sales team to do X, right? Not you have to give it all of the details right now in understanding that, so that from a language perspective, there's no interpretation, right? It'll understand that capability and reference its world of knowledge that it has access to at its fingertips to help you. And then the second thing you talked about was the human-to-human interaction, as well as, does it replace your job? And I get this question all the time, right? I'm scared of this. What's it going to do? Is it going to give some people's jobs, like the person who is importing spreadsheets? I expect that to go away, right? I expect that you will just say, hey, I got this spreadsheet I want to upload. It'll suck in the spreadsheet. It'll figure out the columns and say, I want to map them to my Dynamics or my Power Platform system. And it builds you the map and it inserts it. I can actually see and have seen some of it already coming that way. And we see it in Power Apps, right? We see the Power App, if you haven't tried yet, in the top of the window for make.powerapp.com. If you go there and you say, hey, I'm starting off a new business, I want to maintain inventory, I want to do blah, 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 and you press the button, it builds like 95% of the app just from talking to it. So some of those skill sets are going away. Some of the people who are in CRM today, who are admins that do nothing but add fields and work with the business. What are you going to do when when the business can say, I want to add this field to the form, and it just doesn't, right? What are you going to do? So it's not that your job is going to be eliminated, it's just you're going to do different things. Your business knowledge, all of those things will change. And I love to say Copilot because I think they nailed it with the name. The Copilot name is really where you've got, you're driving in a car and you got your GPS. That's your Copilot. And if you have a Tesla, it's driving the car, but we're not at driving the car, and we're way away from even that type of capabilities in what's happening. And that's responsible AI, and to what Ashley mentioned, always having a human involved. So Ashley, can you do you want to share anything? Like, do you have some examples that you want to pull up on your screen to show us what you're doing with it today?
No, I didn't bring any examples.
Okay.
Sorry.
No,
I
that's
can tell
okay.
you, I can
That's
tell you
okay.
though.
But
Let me
let's
give you a
talk through
list.
some of the use cases,
Yeah,
right?
no.
Okay.
Okay. Well, first of all, for the folks that want to learn more about AI, like prompting, let me tell you, my basic framework that I always teach is I am, you are, I need. That's the basic. So I am a CPA, or I could be a woman who lives in Seattle, or I could be a dog owner, or I could be a rodeo clown that lives in Alaska. I could be anything I want to be. My son sometimes tells it that he's a flat earther that has a subreddit. So you can be whatever you want to be. This is like your world. And then when the you are is telling Gen AI what it is. And I will say with Copilot, the formerly known as Bing Copilot, Microsoft Copilot, it will resist some assignments, and it will also not do things because, for example, it stopped making funny IRS protest letters because I made a video about it, and Microsoft is like, oh no, we don't want to make funny protest letters. I was like, but do you not want to? So you are a. If you put experts, it will suddenly become an expert because it's been trained on the majority of the garbage internet. So if you say you're an expert, it will suddenly elevate its responses. If you say that it is concise because it has all the words in the world like me, so it just kind of goes on and on and on. And then you tell it what it is. And that's the hardest part often is, who do you need help from? But the hardest part, the extra hardest part is, what do you actually need? And so what is it that you're looking for this other thing to do for you? So that's the very basicest is I am, you are, I need. Let me tell you, my last class that I created, because I created a class that was called 30 Days of AI, Tiny Lessons for Busy Professionals, because folks were saying, I don't have time to learn this. And I'm like, well, you literally don't have time not to. So, but that's what I hear a lot is like, I don't have time. So I created this tiny class, like less than 5 minutes a day, just daily reflections. And then the feedback I got was, thanks for teaching us how to use this. Now what do we do? And I was like, but I told you everything. And it turns out that one of the most scary things for humans is like this black box of, Copilot where you have to enter in something. And so my next class was called The Birds and the Bees. If you get it, it's like ZZZ, sex ed for AI, basically. But it was built for new staff because those are the folks that oftentimes are not going to be, like, everything is new. So everything is scary. But it was also built so that they could have that mentor that we often don't provide our new staff. We throw them at the deep end of the pool and, like, if you can swim, great. So I created prompts that were a mentorship bot, like a new staff bot that has is an expert in being a new staff. Been a new staff for 30 years, like gets awards for being a new staff. Staff can go and ask that expert bot, what am I supposed to do?
Right.
Or what is my question bot? Because the biggest thing, like new staff can come in and don't know what their question is, helps them clarify their question.
Yeah. And before ChatGPT and that capability was in the bot, we were doing this with AI Builder, right?
Yeah.
And in AI Builder, we built out a bot at Congruent X. We call her Connie. That's like our code name. And Connie knows, what holidays there is, what days are we off, what, it has some Easter eggs in it, like who's a rock star. That's a special question. If you can answer it in a window, we'll send you a coffee cup. But someone on the team was played in a band, right? Customers, like what's our favorite customer, and it'll respond back with their logo, things like that, right? That's alternating. But also, how do I enter in something in ADO? How do I get access? How do I request a PC, right? All these common questions that Ashley's talking about, that you're onboarding somebody, and not just for the corporation, but also what's their day-to-day job, right?
Yeah.
What are they going to do? And if you've been in the room and you wrote a training guide for all those details, well, now with the generative AI capabilities, you can connect to those training guides, all that information that you wrote, and now the bot will be aware of all that information. So Ashley could take her guides that she had that she was training people, connect that to the bot, and now the bot is aware of all of the processes that was being trained in that document. So anybody could go in Teams, for example, ask that question of the bot, and they would get the answer along with links, how to solve it. And I think you found some great success with onboarding new people with that.
Well, I'm a solo, so but I do have a story from, I was having this conversation with someone a couple of weeks ago, and they were saying that they built like a custom Copilot for their team members doing that same thing, and they were able to get an intern up to doing complicated work, preparing obviously, but new person, fresh, doesn't know their systems or anything, preparing complicated tax returns by the end of a busy season, just having this support network. So that is a huge thing right there. And I want to say one more thing about that, but then I have another use case I think people will love, 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 or they'll hate, but you'll love it. Everyone will love it. What I've observed, like, because I have run teams and managed people, is that it often takes 3 years for someone to get from 0 to knowing everything there is to know about that particular job. And then we move them to a new job and they're like, okay, do it all over again. What if instead of taking 3 years with the amount of resources that you put into that one employee, hoping that at least 40% of those employees stay, what if it takes 18 months and you have higher rates of retention because people are feeling supported and knowing what they need to do in a job and feeling like what they're doing is adding to like the whole. Can you imagine 3 years to 18 months, lower attrition, and you have a better trained workforce?
For 2.75 years, you've got this person who's already expert level now, right? Because they understand what they're doing, and you get more time. It's funny you mentioned that, because Microsoft actually makes people switch their roles every 2 years, right? It's something that Bill Gates believed in order to keep people fresh and keep people interested in their jobs and roles, career pathing, all of those things. There's a lot of science behind it. But one of the things we did in Dialogue Copilot is the fact that the processes that you're talking about, right? That repeatable process that you want someone to be there, we actually can look at like a phone call. Let's say you're in a sales conversation between somebody and it's the first time you're talking to them. Well, that process and the questions that you would ask, if you think about a first call, maybe it is, who am I? How can we help you? What are your problems? What are the issues and challenges you have? Maybe do you have a budget? Do you have a timeline? And next steps, right? Just very clear. Well, we use the generative AI against those phone calls to determine if the person is actually using those words. And if they're
Yeah.
not, then we respond back to them as a real life mentor to say, hey, the next call that you have like this, you got a 63. We can get you to an 80. Here's how you're going to get to an 80. You're going to ask these 5 questions. And that's all generative AI. So you said you had a second use case.
Well, okay, now I want to put in a third use case right there, and then I'll go back to my second use case.
Okay.
I was on a plane trying to show, like, if you ever sit next to me on a plane, I am so sorry. You are going to be talking about generative AI. And I'm going to be showing you prompts. But I sat next to a woman, and I wanted to show her like some cool things you could do. So I just made this quick prompt up called Argue GPT. And basically I built it out so that it's like you're having a conversation with somebody. You get to practice a conversation. You get to choose the topic of conversation. You get to choose how receptive they are to what you're saying. You practice as long as you want. And then when you say done, it will summarize what you did well and then summarize what you can improve on. That prompt took me maybe 10 minutes to build. It was super easy, but just imagine building that out bigger and using it to help your employees practice their interpersonal, their communication skills. Totally possible. Everyone has those employees who are like, I was going to email the client, but I'm scared. So I'm just never going to talk to them again, and I'll probably just quit my job. That's the best solution. Why not train them? I mean, it's just skills.
Yeah.
Okay, now to number 3, and I think you kind of touched on it too, processes. So being a CPA, I like to think of myself as like a special snowflake, but generative AI has proven to me that there is nothing new under the sun. And so you can work with these tools to build out your processes and like comprehensive processes, not just little processes. You can go down that rabbit hole and build out pretty much everything you do. And then you can create documentation around it. So I created a GPT called KTA.
And let's tell everybody what you mean by when you created GPT, because there may be some people on here that don't know what that means.
Great point.
But let's explain what that means.
Yeah. So GPT is basically OpenAI, the creators of ChatGPT. They have I don't know why they called it a GPT, but then once again, Microsoft calls everything a Copilot. It's basically like creating your own little chatbot that you can feed information, you can feed links, you can connect external sources of data, but then you can also build out what it, like how it responds, what it does, its personality, so that you have kind of your own chatbot right there. Kind of like
and this is not code, right, guys? This is
no
you go
code
in
at
and
all.
you say, I'm a sales specialist for a mattress firm,
Yeah.
right? And I'm selling mattresses, and you
Right.
hit create bot, and now it will go out and grab everything about mattresses, and you can ask it questions, right? You
Yeah.
can say, so what's the difference between a king and a queen? I'll give you measurements. You can say, what's the difference between, these two brands? One's adjustable, one's not. It'll know all that information just from what it's pulled in its model. But what it does is it takes the larger language model, the larger ChatGPT model, and focuses it in directly to the skill set that you want. So like Ashley's saying, you could create one from your own conversations and topics by uploading those documents and using them for your business. So a small little GPT, or you can let it grab its documents from the web as well. All of that is done with just a prompt. There's no coding. There's there's nothing to magically learn other than telling it you want to create that bot, and then you use that URL and you could pass it to everybody in your company and they would understand, this is where I go get information for it, right? So really cool usage within the ChatGPT stuff.
Yeah, I actually even shared a draft of it with some folks. So they could try it out. And then one person came back and said it was talking to her like a pirate. And so it shouldn't have done that. There was nothing in I was very clear about how it should talk, how it should speak, but I need to go back and just kind of
I'm being told that you may have a wardrobe ChatGPT.
I do have a wardrobe ChatGPT. Yeah, one of the early use cases for it was trying to figure out what to wear to a conference. because it had been forever since had been to a conference, and it's very overwhelming. So I had it plan a capsule wardrobe for me based on my body size and type and the location and the activities that I would be doing. And then list out all of the things that I would need to purchase.
Would you be willing to come back and do a part 2 where you actually walk through those examples of creating that chatbot online and showing them how to create the chat GPT? How about we have Ashley back? Does that sound good? Yeah. Okay. You can do claps or you can react. That would be great. We'll set you up to have you back, Ashley, so we can walk through those particular use cases. But how about some tips for people? And people are on the call. A lot of people talked about they're not necessarily in tax and accounting, right? And your experience is not specifically in that area. You're working across many different things. What are, you mentioned prompt engineering, those kind of things, but are you getting asked questions around, the use of it? Is it safe? Is it secure? How do you answer those type of questions when you're working, you want to go to your boss and you want to implement that? What are you doing there to help facilitate that conversation?
Absolutely. So if you have the non-enterprise versions of generative AI, like the non-enterprise Copilot, the non-enterprise ChatGPT, it is not secure. And being a CPA, a tax professional, we have very high standards for security. So don't put anything in it that is private. That includes business, corporate information, that includes customer information. But it's so much easier now. Like there are so many ways that you can get an enterprise version now and not be hobbled by trying to come up with pseudonyms for your clients. Just look into the enterprise version. I think Copilot is what, $30 a month, $35 a month for the
and if
Microsoft
you have Office,
365
it's cheaper
version
as well,
right?
And then, what we're talking about here is really intellectual IP, right? And if you
Right.
go out to the public version of ChatGPT and start typing in your corporate secrets to build a bot, guess what? You just gave that information to the next language model for training. To avoid that, you always want to make sure that it shows that you're logged in, that you're connected to your corporate account. And even now I've noticed, Ashley, I don't know if you've noticed, but in the prompts, it actually says this data is protected, right? So when you're not logged in, you'll see the differences, but that's what we're talking about here. And then if you're really technical, you can look at Azure OpenAI Studio, right? And that's where you can go in and do some of these things directly to the LLM with your own data in your business. And it will keep everything protected inside that enterprise tenant that CISOs and IT guys are all security, but it's a topic that keeps coming up for us. Ashley, we got about 3 more minutes before, and we're going to get ready to wrap here. I just wanted to see if anybody has any questions you have for Ashley based on what you heard so far, to let you come off of mic and get a chance to ask that. Anybody have anything for Ashley or myself?
I've got one, Chris.
Sure. Hey, Jessica, thanks for joining again.
Hey, thanks, guys. Really interesting stuff. Ashley, I was just wondering, as you're going through some of the use cases that you were chatting through, thinking most of this stuff is using GPT-4 or GPT-3. I think it's 3.5 right now, but just trying to understand, what's been your experience between those two typical models. And I know you're doing a lot of, for non-tax or non, how do I say, like job specific things, some of the other things that you explained, like what model are you finding most practical to do some of these things that you said?
So for long, so I always use the paid version of both ChatGPT. I have Claude and I have Copilot. For ChatGPT, the paid version can do math, whereas the free version cannot. And so math is kind of something that's important to me because I don't like to do math. But so
wait. An accountant just said she doesn't like to do math.
That's not why we go into this profession. We go into this profession because we love to hang out with people.
I like
so always use the paid version. It has less chances of hallucinating. For ChatGPT, what I use it for is ideation, creation. Like when you need a lot of stuff and you want to go through a ton of conversation. Copilot, like the talky chatty one, I use that for grabbing information from the internet. Like you never have to go into a help section again. And then Claude, because you can dump in so much information, I suggest that best for summarizing, even if it's going to be super boring, because it is
Yeah,
kind
let
of
me
super
add a
boring.
little bit to answer your question, Jessica, as well. So I believe what you're talking about is the difference between the models 3.5, 4.0, and which one do you use? Is that correct?
Yeah, but also versus Claude and Copilot for
Yep.
enterprise too, because we've got a enterprise Copilot, and I find it very limiting in its abilities for us to, obviously it's got boundaries for a good reason.
It
But
does. Yeah, it does.
to do some of the other fun stuff that I think where creativity and ideation come into play,
Yeah.
thinking about, those things too, outside
So
of Copilot.
I do believe that using a combination of tools right now doesn't harm you, right? See which one gives you the best response for what's happening. Okay. So I do have multiple ones installed as well. Just to see not only keeping up with them, but some are better like Koala is a conversational LLM, which is much better at looking at a conversation and parsing it than ChatGPT is, right?
Oh, okay.
It's also more efficient. There's ones for transcribing. There's all kinds of different ones. I forget the name of like the Wall Street, it runs the stock market. They're
Bloomberg.
actually making one for trading. But in regards to the actual models, I think you'll see a lot of people still on 3.5, primarily due to the cost, right? A 3.5 transaction versus a 4.0 transaction, there's a significant cost difference there to use the new stuff. So try to blend that so you can keep your costs and your budgets down on, do I really need the 4.0 capability, right? Am I doing something that requires that? And what I do, and I'm sure Ashley does the same thing, we just prototype it in both windows, right? See what the differences response is. I do know the 4.0 is more performant. And if I needed something like a user interface that I wanted it back really fast, I may pay a little extra to give me a little better adoption. But I know we're 3 minutes over. And I really appreciate you guys coming today. Ashley, wanted to thank you for joining us and being another guinea pig for us. We loved having you here, and we hope you'll be back for that second show. So we'll set that up after our call. And don't forget these upcoming events, both the AI Copilot Digital Summit. You can join online. It's August 22nd. It's all day about these type of topics, as well as the used to be the CRM UG, now it's the Summit North America coming up in October 13th through the 17th. We'll all be there speaking and trying to help you. But as always, we hope you guys enjoyed the Copilot Show. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Thanks, Ashley.
Thanks.